Hey everyone, this is Carla from 247tickets, and we're here with a super iconic artist.
Ni hao everyone, I'm Persue, creator of Wet Paint and Bunny Kitty.
Yeah, we're here at his exhibition. It's going to be running all the way through midway October, so you should definitely check it out. There's really cool art everywhere. So pretty much I just want to know how it all began, like the process.
For the show?
Just in general, like your passion for art.
Oh, well, it started really early, and I think that it helped that my grandmother and my mom noticed that I had the artist spirit. Mm-hmm. And from there, I was introduced to the art form of graffiti in 1988, and it just took hold. And I found myself searching around my city from where I'm from for other like-minded artists. And I was able to find them. It took some time.
Yeah.
And then from there we started to produce pieces with spray paint around the city, mostly underground. It hadn't reached the levels it's at now. So it was very underground, and we did that for many years, and I worked in the skateboard industry building brands for a long time. And about 18 years ago, I created this character by the name of Bunny Kitty. Mm-hmm. And she was, when I created her, I saw a lot of myself in her and a lot of my family, and I started to develop her universe and create multiple characters and then the storyline. And I ended up collaborating with my late mom on the first chapter book of Bunny Kitty. It's titled The Origins of Bunny Kitty.
Nice. Is it for kids or?
It's for families.
Okay.
It's for people of all ages. This first chapter book is really, family, geared. Oriented, yeah. So the next book will be a little bit more street aesthetic. So Bunny Kitty came out of the underground when I started painting her 18 years ago, and I just told her story through my graffiti because it's the only way I was able to. I didn't have, a budget to do what I wanted to do with it. Yeah. So I relied on my graffiti in the streets. And fast forward 18 years later, and here I am in Shanghai.
Yeah, that's so dope. So since graffiti, for a lot of people, I feel like in society is considered like vandalism, and for others is street art, how do you define like the line? Because I feel like there's a fine line between that.
There is, and I can't define it. There's people that are on both sides of that line, and there's the illegal aspect and the criminal mind that goes with it, and there's also the beautification and the arts and the development of one's style. Some people go back and forth between these lines, and some people don't. Some people are strictly artistic, and some people are strictly vandals, and so there's just I kind of go back and forth between the two. But now that I'm older, I tend to really concentrate on the beautification and telling the story of graffiti and where it comes from, and that it was an American art form invented by children. And I think that's why people, especially now, are starting to understand where it comes from and love the vibrance of the art form and the message that it conveys and stuff like that as they learn. Because when I was younger, people were saying that it was a negative art form, right, and they were trying to kill it. And so a lot of us, just we're working on the underground, and it took a few things to happen in order for us to be able to emerge out of that underground and say like, hey, we have something. A lot of us have something positive to say, and a lot of us don't. It does, it's just it's yin and yang. It's like
a balance.
Yeah, it's a balance with everything, and so I just so happen to be right here, right now.
Yeah, it's so crazy how times change and how your art, because you commit to it. You have to commit to it in order to get to where you want to get.
Yes, it takes perseverance and sacrifice.
Of course. Yes. What was the first thing you did graffiti on? First off?
Probably the freeway.
The freeway, okay. Yeah. How was that? How did you feel? Were you
exhilarating
ever scared or nervous?
I was. I was with people that knew what they were doing, kind of. So they looked really good with the can, and every time I tried to do something that was elaborate as them, it just came out bad. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I have a lot to do, but I knew that I was really into learning more about it and seeking it wasn't so readily available like it is today. Like you look on your phone, you look on the internet, and you can find a lot of information out there. When I was doing it in the late 80s, it was really hard to find, and so you really had to, if you wanted to be a part of it, you'd have to put yourself in it.
Yeah, that's true. Is it your first time in China?
I've been to China a few times. This is my first time in Shanghai.
Okay.
But I've painted in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and Chengdu around 2006, 2007.
Okay.
So I've been here a few times, and I've done quite a few paintings in China.
Cool. When you arrived to Shanghai, was there anything that inspired you or something that struck you that, I don't know, that you hadn't seen somewhere in another city, for example?
The buildings.
Okay.
Because I was living in New York for quite a few years, and I just remember being just blown away by the skyline. But then when I came to Shanghai and I saw the skyline, I was like, oh, wow, this makes New York look small.
Okay.
In a way.
I've never been to New York, but I assume it's something like this.
You would see, I mean, just the buildings and the sheer size of things, you know, like, I think the food, I was really excited to eat the food here, and even the street food I enjoyed. And then coming to this space, the space here that we're showing in Shanghai has a lot of history with rolling 20s or 30s or something like that, the gangster era.
Right.
And so this building has a lot of that energy, and to be able to show in such a space, it just seems like we were welcomed because everything kind of came together very well, and the people we were working with Wavemaker, I showed up and I was just blown away by what they had produced based off of my designs.
That's so cool. I know your wet paint project has been super big. How did it begin where you were just started taking wet paint signs?
Yeah, that was when I was living in New York trying to finish the illustrations or the paintings for the Bunny Kitty book. Okay. And I was living in New York, and it was very difficult. I didn't have a day job. I was trying to exist as an artist solely. And so I had to come up with different ways to generate income. And while riding the train back and forth from my home to my studio in Red Hook, I noticed these wet paint signs, and a lot of us graffiti writers, we don't have a lot of money to buy the canvases we want or this and that, and so I really love the boldness of the red letters and the white square, and there was something very kind of nostalgic about it, but I couldn't quite place my finger on it. And then I was, I'm just going to take one, and I'm going to bring it back to my studio and do a painting. And so when I did that, and I sat down and I produced the first painting, it just looked like it was meant to be. And as I did my research about the signs, I found out that you can only find these signs in the subways. And they've been printing these signs since the 80s, and it was connected to the war on graffiti from the 80s. And so I was like, oh, this is pretty amazing. Yep. And I started to invite other OG graffiti writers from around New York and around the world to collaborate with me on the project, because I've been traveling doing graffiti since the 90s, and so like the network was strong. And so I asked people for favors to join me, and they did, and we had a couple art shows, and they were very well received, and it just kind of started to grow from there. But I was really excited to find out that these wet paint signs were solely made for the subway system, and that you couldn't go out and buy these signs. And so they were the perfect canvas to kind of build a movement within the movement.
Yeah, it's like ironic too, but it's really cool.
Yeah, it's like we win again.
Yeah, it's like you guys came back and
who knows?
Stronger.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so cool that it worked out.
Yeah.
I know you do like small pieces and bigger pieces. If you could choose, or better, I'll ask first. What are like the pros and cons between small projects and bigger pieces?
The pros and cons, probably the energy of what it takes to produce a large piece. It's like a dance. Okay. And so if you're out there producing a large-scale piece, you could be there for days. And so it takes an immense amount of like will and power to be out there. And material, bending over and picking up the cans and spraying and holding your hand up for 12-hour sessions for multiple days. So that could take its toll on you. So that's maybe some cons, but the the prose is the end result, and the reaction of your peers and the public.
Yeah. What about for small pieces? Do you enjoy doing smaller pieces versus bigger pieces, or it depends on your mood? Or
I think I like doing the small pieces. They're fun, especially the wet paint stuff, and they're attainable by my collectors because, as of right now, they're not really that expensive. But they're highly collectible because of like whose names are on them and the history. And I don't expect a lot of people from Shanghai or China to really understand or grasp that. But when you go into the train and you see the wet paint sign show, what you're looking at is like 4 decades worth of artists from the 70s, from the 80s to the 90s and to the present. And so that's what I think is really special about this show.
Yeah.
So, but that's the reason why I like small pieces. They're somewhat fast, they're effective, and they're collectible.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for your
and
time.
Everybody, you have to check it out. It's really, really cool. Yeah. Well, okay, well, this was Carla from 247 with Dave Persue.
That's right. Peace.